Caloroga Shark Media.
Hello, I'm Johnny Mac with your daily comedy news. This one caught me by surprise. Andrew Santino and Bobby Lee, you know, they have that podcast Bad Friends that's massively popular, but like most of mainstream America has no idea who either one of them are. It's funny with comedy. You could be like secretly huge. There's a lot of comedians that are secretly huge, and we'll talk about this sometimes in the Facebook group, which is Daily Comedy News Podcast Group. Walk down the street, 100 people go, "Hey, do you like Andrew Santino?" And unless you like specifically pick a certain demo, you might go 0 for 100. You might go like 3 for 100, but it's not like, hey, have you ever heard of Jerry Seinfeld, right? But they're good. Anyway, the podcast is being made into an adult animated series for Hulu. Bad Friends follows the relationship between Andrew, a fiery lightning bug, and Bobby, a shy roly-poly, as they navigate the treacherous waters of being adolescent misfit bugs in high school. Okay, sure. No details other than that, but you didn't see that one coming, did you? Me neither. Yahoo profiled Kevin James, which makes for some great holiday weekend filler. Kevin told a story where he showed up to a stand-up gig at a bachelor party and found out the guests were expecting a stripper instead. Kevin told Yahoo, "The stripper didn't show and they put me up on stage and I had to stand on a chair in the middle of a bunch of guys and do my act. It was pretty rough, but I left with a lot of tips that night." That's a good tag. He hasn't done stand-up in a while. He says, "It's nerve-wracking when you haven't done it for a while. Like when you're doing a new show, you got to oil the muscles again and get everything working again. You go through that couple of shows and you get your legs." I wouldn't say I get nervous anymore. It's more that I get excited. I just love doing stand-up. I can understand that. I always would get nervous before a big radio show. If we were doing a remote or a really big guest, there'd be nervous energy in the room, even though you would do radio every single day. And I'd been in the career 25, 30 years. You still get that nervous energy. I hear you. He got an audition for Saturday Night Live. He bombed. At the time, he thought it was a failure. He now sees it as one of the best things that ever happened to him. He recalls, "You feel like, oh no, what did I do? I bombed, but I'm so happy I did. I really am." He's currently working on Solo Mio, in which Kevin James plays a groom who got stood up at the altar in Italy and decides to go on his honeymoon alone. He says, "These movies aren't made anymore. There aren't that many of them. I'm going to bust my butt to make this thing." I do love those type of movies, and I haven't done one in a long time. Solo Mio sounds like it should be an Adam Sandler movie. No, yes. Boy, it's like the article read my mind. Now, who writes, "One of James' frequent collaborators is Adam Sandler, who he met decades ago. They didn't become friendly until Kevin was on The King of Queens. Sandler had an office on the Sony lot. They met. Kevin says, "I just met him, hung out and talked and became really close. Now he's one of my best friends. Just the greatest guy in the world. I'm very happy to be part of that camp. I really am. Anytime he says, 'Hey, I'm thinking of doing this,' I say, 'I'm in.' I get it. Hey, I would be in an Adam Sandler movie." Now, the movie would be terrible because it's an Adam Sandler movie, but I would be in it, sure. Will Kevin James make an appearance in Happy Gilmore 2? We can only hope so. He says, "I don't know. We'll see. We're talking about it right now. We're working on some other stuff, and hopefully, yes, if it happens. I couldn't tell you anyway, but I don't know." Hey, you ever get 5 minutes into the second podcast of 5 you're trying to record and you hear your voice going already? Yeah. Trying to take a long weekend. Paul Scheer was on Conan recently and told a story about who he picked as his best man at his wedding in 2009. The answer? A Jack Nicholson impersonator. As Scheer tells the story in a Nicholson impression, I don't have one of those. The Nicholson impersonator arrived to the wedding late and goes, "Hey, sorry I'm late. I was at a party at Roman Polanski's house." That was his opening line. The wedding venue was split with parents and older adults on one side, the couple's friends on the other. Paul says, "Now our friends on the other side are having the best time going, 'Oh, this is insane.' And the people on the other side started going, 'I think he might know Jack Nicholson. This is hilarious.'" If you want to hear this properly told, it's on Conan's podcast. Scheer says, "The day of the wedding, he pulls me aside and goes, 'You have a teleprompter?' I say, 'A teleprompter? No, it's a wedding. There's no teleprompter.' He goes, 'I'm not really going to remember too much of the speech.' So the man started improvising. He starts devolving into things that aren't even Jack Nicholson. Paul said, 'I did know that I married the right person, because when I brought that up to June, she was like, 'Yeah, you can have him.' And that was a nice moment. Very nice." Carlos Mencia spoke to Tucson.com. Weird setup here. New York Mayor Eric Adams recently suggested immigrants could help fill the city's lifeguard shortage because they are excellent swimmers. The response did not go over well. Carlos Mencia, though, said the joke has two sides to it. One side is, "Whoa, what's he trying to say?" And the other side is all my immigrant family saying, "No, he's right. We are very good swimmers." One of his setups in his shows, spoiler in case you're planning on seeing Carlos Mencia, "Clap if you were not born in the country." Then he waits, people clap, and he goes, "How many of you are good swimmers?" See, that's why he likes the Eric Adams stuff. And you'll see they all clap, and then I'll find somebody who speaks English with a really thick accent, and I'll go, "Were you offended by this?" And the cool thing is it's not always somebody from Mexico. The other day, a guy from Latvia said, I am from Latvia, and I am an immigrant, and I am a great swimmer. That's the beauty of what I'm talking about. My ability to take reactionary moments that are like, hey man, we're not supposed to be like that, and talking about the humans it affects. Let us not be arbiters of what is offensive to other people. Tucson.com writes, Mencia recently appeared at an LGBTQ plus event and watched comedian after comedian tell LGBTQ jokes. When it was his turn, he asked the audience why it was okay to tell those jokes, but not at his comedy club shows. Mencia said, somebody said, because here we know that they're one of us. And I said, so I'm not one of you? Tucson.com says the response was something of an epiphany for Mencia. Comedy cannot be contained in a bubble. It has to be given license to put a mirror in all of society, not just segments of it. That's where I am now. I'm free. You don't have to go to a Latino show. You don't have to go to an urban show. You don't have to go to a redneck show. Come to my show, and it's like all those shows put together. We're going to laugh at each other and ourselves, and that's it. My intention is good. If you don't understand that, then I don't know what to say. I'm a comedian. My intent is to make you as happy as humanly possible doing what I do. JB Smoove was on The Daily Show and talked about stand-up comedy. He sees it as vital to survival because there's no way in hell you could take the brunt of the real world every day without that filtration. Smoove argues the comedians are empaths. They have to read the room and adjust their sets accordingly. Good stuff there. Vulture recently profiled Zach Toscani back in August of 22. Zach was performing a stand-up show in Boulder, Colorado, when suddenly an audience member's hyperactive dog began running laps around the house like it had been possessed. At first, it was a minor distraction, but then the dog came back with the remains of the rabbit it had been chasing. You see, Zach Toscani does DIY shows. An average house show, and by house show, I don't mean, what a comedian would normally call a house show. This is a show at your house. Zach usually plays around 40 to 50 people. He charges a flat fee, $800 for shows on weekdays, $1,200 for shows on the weekends. Some guests also give out his Venmo and encourage the guests to tip him. That can bring in an extra $300 to $400. He did 45 house shows in 2020, 85 in 23. 25 of those were rebookings from the previous year. Some of his fellow comedians have been like, nah, that's great, but then you have to hang out afterwards and talk to people. And yeah, most comedians don't want to hang out with non-comedians. Comedians are a breed. They're a particular breed. Zach says it's the better part of doing the whole thing. You feel like you're actually connecting with people. There are times where going to the show, I'll be like, I'm feeling kind of tired. I'll probably do my set, hang out for a little bit, and then dip. Then afterwards, I'm like, they're going to have to kick me out. I do that all the time. I call that going rock star. The amount of times I would drag myself to go out after work, planning to catch the 7:30 train, and then actually catching the 12:30 a.m. train. Yeah. And I'm not even a big drinker. I just get into the hang and the socialness of it. If you hang out with me, you've heard me say the phrase, 2 beers, not 8. Zach says, I did one show in a suburb outside of Oakland. The people who booked me were like, we're Palestinians. So all the people here tonight are in the Palestinian community. I don't think I would have had access to that if I was at a comedy club. That show in particular was like, let me eat all this food. They were like, we're going to dance after this. You want to dance? I was like, yes, let's effing dance. One show, there was a couple who were like, hey, would like to book you. We just moved in together. We're getting married. Is it going to be weird if it's just us? Kyle Kinane asked to come to one. He comes to an apartment show with those two people, so he sits in a lazy boy chair behind the couple sitting on their couch while I'm standing in the kitchen doing comedy. It was a blast. That's really funny. A lot more to this article. It's on Vulture. It was up there a couple weeks ago, but search for, let me give you his name correctly, Zach Toscani, Z-A-K, new word, Toscani. That's on Vulture. Definitely worth your read there. And that's your comedy news for today. Keep it a little shorter on the holiday weekend. If you enjoy the show, tell a friend about it. They might like it too. If you'd like these things commercial free, we're banging the desk out of that promo. That'll tell you what to do. Open up Apple Podcasts, click $4.99. You've heard the promo. Just do it already. All right. See you tomorrow.